who is Executive Director of International Commission for the Protection of the Rhine, the head of Secretariat in Germany. Marc also has 14 years experience in water management and environment and held various corporate management positions such as heads of unit in urban planning, surface water development, etc. Was Deputy Managing Director of Flood Competence Center, a lot of floods this year, and Scientific Assistant in the Department of Flood Risk Management at the Bavarian Environment Policy in München, Herzberg, Germany. He was Diploma 2010 in Geography, Urban Planning, Public Law, etc. He's in Bonn, Germany, one of my favorite small towns in Germany, where they moved the capital to Berlin, and Bonn is now becoming a center for climate change. Marc, we give you the floors. With your 71 years of international cooperation, you're going to talk about virtual. Please, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Cairo. Thanks very much for the invitation. I hope you can hear me without any technical problems. Greetings from Bonn, Germany. That's where I'm based. Our commission is in Koblenz. It's another smaller town in Germany. Esteemed ministers, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, thanks for the invitation to attend this conference and present our commission during this panel. Before I start, I would like to transmit you the greetings from Veronica Manfredi. She is director at the European Commission and also president of our Rhine Commission from 2020 to 2022, because we have a rotationary principle. She cannot be there today, also virtually, but she wishes us a successful conference. With 200,000 square kilometers, the Rhine River Basin is only 10% as big as the Nile River Basin, but it has a lot of different pressures and different uses in this small area. We have 60 million inhabitants living in that area in 9 states. It's quite densely populated. We have some of the most important industrial hubs of Europe. And as we heard, the Rhine is also an important traffic way. 3 million tons of goods are transported every year by ship, so it's the most navigated river in the world. There's also a lot of hydropower on the French riverbank, and it's an important source for drinking water. Half of the population in the whole basin depends directly or indirectly on drinking water from the river. We have a lot of ecology functions, of course, and tourism as well. So that's why actually it's so important to reconcile all those different uses between each other, the uses coming from the different sectors, but also from the different countries. As the title already says, our commission was founded in 1950, more than 70 years ago, only 5 years after the Second World War. Maybe you can imagine how the situation was like back then, because countries who had just fought against each other 5 years before started to cooperate on water topics, introducing a common measuring network with measuring stations, and this took quite some time in the beginning. Today, our commission consists of 9 countries, and we have an international treaty as legal framework of our work, just like there is, for example, on the River Nile between neighboring countries. But our everyday work in the Commission is based on expert groups. They get the political mandate from the countries to work on specific topics, and then they fulfill these tasks. And what's really important also to know is that we are a coordination-based commission, which means countries in our commission negotiate common objectives, and it's an obligation to fill the objectives afterwards, but the implementation of measures to reach those goals takes place in the countries themselves. And even measuring of substances is only done by the countries themselves. We also don't have any sanctions, so according to this consensus principle, everything the ministers of the Rhine River Basin agree on are basically political promises. Our main tasks circle around 4 topics. The oldest one is water quality. Then we are also responsible for ecological topics, such as biotopes along the river, but also migratory fish. Finally, also flood risk management. You all know flooding doesn't stop at national borders, and climate change adaptation, which is also interconnected with all the other topics. When we look back, we can say that cooperation in our commission is a success story, because since the 1970s, emissions, mostly emissions from point sources, those pollutions decreased significantly, as you can see on some of the graphs on those slides. And at the same time, the oxygen started to increase, the oxygen level, which is the blue curve on the slide. And with the oxygen and the disappearance of pollution, species that had almost gone extinct came back to the river. Now we have more than 70 types of fish that have returned to the river. So this is a success story, but it took quite some time. One of our most prominent projects now, which we are still working on and it's not realized yet, is the reintroduction of the Atlantic salmon, a fish that used to be very, very abundant in the Rhine, but was gone extinct after the industrialization. And the plan is to bring those salmon back to the River Rhine. And therefore, fish passes have to be constructed on the dams. It's a big financial investment. And yeah, countries are working on that topic. Before I come to the end, I would like to highlight some key success factors also as take-home messages, and also in order to foster ongoing discussion. One very important thing from our experience in our commission is that you agree on common objectives. Take your time to negotiate them. It is complicated, especially if you have this consensus principle and you need an agreement, a compromise. The advantage is that afterwards, really the countries identify with the objectives and take measures. This is what counts. Secondly, it's also helpful to have a common vision. For example, this project of reintroducing the salmon has become a very strong symbol. Everybody knows the salmon. There are a lot of other migratory fish in the Rhine River Basin, but it's really a strong symbol also in the population that they identify with this objective, with this vision. Thirdly, the involvement of NGOs has proven very important, especially in our commission. When there is a conflict or one country lags behind, they really have another possibility to put pressure on the countries than the neighboring countries have. And they're doing a great work and really making sure countries go on working on their promises and staying ambitious. Finally, an important, providing some infrastructure from our point of view is also important. We have a secretariat in Koblenz in Germany with 10 employees, making sure the work in the Commission works well. We work with 3 working languages, German, French, and Dutch. Everything is translated or interpreted simultaneously. It has also been said that countries are relatively wealthy in the Rhine River Basin. That's true, of course. It makes international cooperation sometimes easier, and there is also no economic gap between the countries. In the Danube Basin, for example, in Eastern Europe, there are wealthy countries and poorer countries, and there is a gap, and this leads sometimes to conflicts. And last but not least, and this is really a take-home message also, is that we have a long-standing tradition of multilateralism and ecological conscience, and all those works and also our success story took a lot of time, especially in the first, let's say, 2 or 3 decades. There were very little improvements. The success came in the 1970s. So it really takes some time to establish trust, but it's really, really worth collaborating internationally on transboundary projects. Thanks very much, and I wish you a very successful conference.
Thank you, Mike. I see why everybody talks about the Rhine. 9 states, 60 million inhabitants, different uses, navigation, hydro, sources of water drinking, and tourism managed to bring compromise in all of those countries that fought war, and after 5 years you need to cooperate. That's something to emulate. 71 years of that. I take this opportunity once again to thank you, Mike, being out there and giving all of that we're waiting. And once again, thank you very much, all of you. Good night.